It has been said that the quality of your life is determined by the standards that you set for yourself. Now, whilst this may be true in part, I personally believe that the quality of your life can be determined in equal measure by the quality of your connections with others. I have a confession to make. I'm a shameless networker. Have been as long as I can remember. Earliest networking I think I did would have been in high school. Or at least the majority of the opportunities I've had come my way in life, the things that I've manifested and the connections that I've been able to make with people come from networking. But why is it important to you? We don't do enough of it. In 2001, when I first went to see my first ever professional speaker, I was working for an entrepreneur, a role that I'd networked my way into. My role was to develop myself as a speaker. And I went along to watch a speaker, and they're the first professional I'd ever seen. Back then, the internet wasn't as big as it is today. A lot of people still had dial-up connections back home. That's through your phone line. It used to make a funny little sound. Hands up if you can remember. Dit. Thank you. And TED wasn't as well known as it was either, as it is today. So you had to go and see these people in person. So I showed up at the local swap club, and the first person I saw was a presenter talking about networking. This woman was incredible. She could turn handing a business card to somebody into a motivational speech. Now, I looked around the room that day, and as people were listening, I didn't see what I expected. Instead of seeing people getting their business cards ready, looking around the room, or talking to the person sitting next to them on the table, I saw people with their heads down, notepad and pen, furiously taking notes. I thought, what's going on here? They've got it all wrong. I'd naively assumed that people were as successful as I'd been to that point, at least as successful as I'd been in networking. I didn't think I was anything special. What networking can bring you and the qualities of connections with others. I've been lucky enough to meet some incredibly influential people, win the trust of people that I only ever dreamed of looking up to in the past when I was younger, and had some amazing opportunities simply because of this. But in the short time we have together today, I'd like to share 3 things that I think will enhance your ability to connect with others. Regardless of if you are already a pretty effective networker, or if you think that, or have even been told that your interpersonal skills are quite good. The first of these points is to remember that it's not about you. Leave your ego at the door. This is something that whenever I'm lucky enough to share with people about public speaking and presentation skills, I try to get them to remove the ego so they're not focusing on themselves and their nerves and they're freaking out. You don't have to worry about it. Because if you can remove yourself and focus on the message just comes through. You're just the conduit. And the same as when you're connecting with others. It's about them. It's about what's important to them. I often encourage this, and I encourage people to get up and present as often as possible, because when you're in an event, rather than standing around there with your business cards, hey, handing them out, trying to meet people, if you're the speaker, people want to network with you. It's leverage. An example of this is when I, about 3 years ago, was at a wedding with my wife, Teresa, who's here today. And about halfway through, I didn't know anybody at the wedding, and about halfway through the dinner service, I'm in the bathroom washing my hands, and a gentleman came out of the cubicle looking a bit nervous. I said to him, "G'day, mate, how's it going?" He was like, "Oh, hey, not so good, mate." I go, "What's the problem?" He said, "I'm the father of the bride. I've got to go out there in a minute, and there's over 100 people, I've got to present to them." I said, "Look, you probably bumped into the right person." I reckon by now I've probably trained at least 1,000 people in how to present, but we don't have long. And I've delivered lots of presentations. I've been very lucky. People have wanted to sit around and hear what I had to say. So if I can distill it into one thing that could help you get across the line right now, is to remember what you're about to do is not about you. It's about everybody who's come along. It's about sharing the joy and happiness that you have today of being lucky enough to give your daughter away in marriage. Just share that joy with them. Just step aside and let it all just flow. So I didn't think any more of it. Went back to dinner, back to my wine, having a good time. About 2 weeks later, Teresa gets a phone call. It's the bride. She goes, "What did Craig say?" Teresa puts the phone down and goes, "What did you say?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "You said something to the bride's father and he can't stop raving about this guy he ran into in the toilet." Now, if you know anything about Aussie guys in particular, they don't like to talk to each other in the toilet. It's like, you know, mate. So I just said, look, I just told him it wasn't about him. Removing yourself from that is the first step. The next thing I think that's important when it comes to connecting with others is leaving your agenda at the door. Often when I have the opportunity to network with others, if it's a chance to meet and just discuss and get to know one another, I don't factor that in. I don't go there thinking, what can I get out of this? Maybe they can give me an opportunity here or there. I don't worry about that. I focus first on getting to know the person. So as a caveat to that, if you can't get past your agenda, because sometimes it has to be there, especially if you're going to a networking event and there's recruiters and you need work or whatever it is, think relationships first. In the military, they have a system, a 3-point system for how they get things done. You may have heard of it. It's mission first, team second, and individual third. When it comes to connecting with others, you can have several similar 3 points. There's relationships first, the other person second, and if you must have your agenda, third, but a bit of a distant third. When I used to network with people for speaking, often once we realised that we could help each other out, they could book me or I could deliver something for them, I wouldn't ever mention it again. I'd just focus on developing a friendship. Then by the time they got back to me about that speaking opportunity, we were both in a better position. I was more motivated to make them look good and do a great job, and they were more happy working with a friend. So whatever the opportunity could be, it works out so much better. Since leaving the Defence Force in April last year, I've had some fantastic opportunities to share stories about my experiences on deployment. I joined, shortly after leaving, I joined North Bondi RSL, which is a very strong RSL club in Sydney that advocates quite strongly for veterans. So a friend and I both joined. We used to meet up there once a month, and they sent us a list of all the great things they were doing for veterans. And one of those things was a program called Service Stories, which was about getting veterans out in the community, getting them in, giving them some training, demilitarising their communication skills a little bit, then getting them out in the community presenting to raise the profile of veterans of recent conflicts, and hopefully also as a therapeutic tool for them. So I got involved. Now, the training didn't really get off the ground, but there were a lot of great speaking engagements, which I did as many as I could. And the first one to come through was for the US Consul General in Sydney. So I went along. Speech went okay. I was happy about that. But the US Consul General, a man called Hugo Lorenz, and I hit it off. He'd been the ambassador to Afghanistan in 2012 when I was there on my second rotation. And he invited us to his 4th of July party, which is great, met some incredible people, and he's invited us to many other events since. Now, after that first event, he said to me, "We've got to catch up, we've got to get together." I said, "That'd be great." I just started at Telstra not long after that, and I just got really busy and didn't have the time. And then in March of this year, I got asked to speak for the Minister for Veterans Affairs for a morning tea prior to the Welcome Home Parade for Operation Slipper in March of this year. And at that event, here was the US Consul General again. And he goes, "Craig, we've got to catch up." So I thought, I'm going to make sure this happens this time. So I contacted him. We met for coffee not long after. And within a few minutes, once we'd exchanged pleasantries, he looks at me and said, "What can I do for you?" I said, "Hugo, I don't come to events or to meetings like this with what I can get out of it, what's personally in it for me." I said, "I come to with respect for each other, we've got a lot in common, and just to develop the friendship and enjoy your company." I said, "If something comes out down the track that we could actually work on together, or if there's an opportunity for either of us out of knowing each other and being mates," I said, "more than happy." But I said, "Right now, let's just communicate and connect." Now, from that, I've been invited to a lot of things. I've been advised to go in different areas, such as politics and other things, but it's been fantastic because I've been able to get some incredible advice, and onwards from that, I get invited to new things. So it's been an incredible experience just from getting to know this amazing person. The third point I have for you, you go on all day about how to connect a little bit better with people, is starting with the right intention. Sometimes knowing what the right intention or the right approach to begin with isn't always easy. You need to dig a little bit to uncover it. But once you know the right intention and you stick true to your course of that intention, your results speak for themselves. In 2012, as I mentioned before, I went to my second deployment to Afghanistan. And it was at that first few days I was in country, I thought I'd be working in a radio room, typing like crazy, typing communications as they came from the field, which can be a little bit stressful, but once your twinkle fingers get working, it's no problem whatsoever. Get a good job in a typing pool after a 6-month deployment in Afghanistan, I'll tell you what. However, I got offered another opportunity, and that was to train the partnering force, who are indigenous Pashtuns, which is the largest tribe in that part of the world, stretches over from Afghanistan into Pakistan. The local special police, to train them in high-frequency communications. Now, this is an opportunity that I jumped at, but I was warned very early. I was told, be careful, not expecting much out of this deployment, and you might get frustrated. They said all the negatives first. They said they're not that smart, which realistically, just because people haven't had a formal schooling does not mean they're not smart. They're lazy, everyone's got a different approach. And last of all, they want 3-hour lunch breaks. Thought, okay, I could, and plus plenty worse things than that. I thought I could take that as the reality, or I could put it to one side and find out for myself. So after a little bit of interaction and a little bit of thought, I decided I was going to take a process of empowerment and the attitude that I was a guest in their country, and a very grateful one at that. This is something that I communicated regularly and often. Early on the first training, teaching them the radios out on an outdoor range that I'd set up, not far from the sniper range. Some days it was closed for obvious reasons. When we're doing a bit of Q&A and the participants on the course started asking a whole lot of questions, and one guy was standing sort of beside me, backed a little bit, with a big beard, stocky guy, answering all their questions. And the interpreter said, do you know what he's saying? I'm like, you're the interpreter, mate. I said, no, I've got no idea. They said, they're asking him all questions about how to get the radio to work, and he's giving these fantastic examples. So I came up to him and I said, his name was Nakibullah. And I said, how would you like this to be your job? He said, I'm passionate about this. I've been fighting in Afghanistan since I was old enough to fight the Russians with my father. I said, my job is to find you. So on we went. We worked together for the next 6 months. Now, it wasn't always easy. After the course, before a mission, I'd train them, get them in, get them to prove they could get the communications to work, send them out on a mission. Often they'd come back without achieving communications. Now, this went backwards and forwards for a while, and once we'd exhausted every option we thought possible, I thought we needed a new approach. So I started debriefing. On the first day I went into their compound and debriefed them, they were quite scared, because I walked in, there was me, Nakibullah on one side, who was about my size, and my number one interpreter. And we walked, and this was on a Friday, and their relaxing day off, and they were a lot smaller than us. Now, this is a patriarchal society where they would have been beaten for much less than simply not getting radios to work. So these guys started to shake. And I said to them, guys, you're not in trouble. What did I say to you when we first started to work together? Guest in your country. You can't be in trouble with me. I'm here to communicate and work out why you think the radios can't work. They said to me, after some effort back and forth, they said, those radios don't work because we don't believe that they can work. I said, fantastic. I've got the answer. They looked at me puzzled. I said, it's pretty clear in this country that you have some very strong held beliefs, and I'm not here to change those. What I would like to do, though, is get you to try. If Nakibullah can take you out in the field on a mission and prove to you the radios can work, would you be prepared to give it a go? To which they said yes. A few days later, they go out in the field, achieve the communications over 200 kilometres away in northern Kandahar. Now, this is a testament to them. I was just a conduit that helped to move it in the right direction with hopefully a good intention. News of this spread, and within a few weeks, it was my last meeting there. So rather than give a communications update, I just did a thank you. with the people I'd worked with in Afghanistan. And I thanked them for opening their hearts, allowing me in, and thanked them for the incredible relationships we were able to build. And one of their leaders got up and said, Hoishar, which was my Pashto name, you're always Hoishar, which means happy. You're the best we've ever had. We wish you a safe trip home and a long, happy life in Australia. This was, as you could imagine, a bucket list 10 out of 10 moment, if you like, to have achieved this in a country where I didn't understand the culture, didn't understand the language, didn't understand a lot of things. But I knew that what connected us, we're all connected, whether we like it or not, just as you mentioned, Matt. Just need to have the right approach sometimes. We're prepared to shape it and move it. These 3 points I've shared with you, I believe will enhance the way they communicate with others. But not only that, they'll empower and improve your life and hopefully the lives of people that you're lucky enough to touch. Thank you.